Have you ever thought about the way God does things isn't usually the way we want them done? The way that God does things is not the ideal way that you would go about doing it. If that's you, I can agree with you a lot. Now, if you're new to this channel or just hearing this episode, I've been doing a study where I've actually put out some of my study that I do. And today we're at day 15 of 75. And you can go back on my channel and see some of the older videos. And we're talking today about the God of provision and unstuck in our thinking and how they actually mesh. My name is Drew Cause, and I do podcasting. This is called the Unstuck Podcast. This part of the podcast is getting unstuck spiritually, and thinking is indeed a part of our spiritual journey. If you're new here, go subscribe so that we can keep doing better for people and helping people out. So today we're looking at 1 Kings chapter 17 verses 2 through 5, and I'll read it in the Amplified version. It says, "And the word of the Lord came to him, saying, Go from here and turn eastward, and hide yourself by the brook Cherith, which is the east of the Jordan River. You shall drink from the brook, and I have commanded the ravens to sustain you there with food." So he went and did in accordance with the word of the Lord. He went and lived by the brook Cherith, which is east of the Jordan. Automatically, just looking at the previous days, we've been talking about faith versus fear, and then we've been talking about changing our mindset, and now we're into the part of God providing. When you change your mindset, that means that you're looking for something different to happen. You're looking to go from part A to part B, and usually finances is a big part of it. It is for me, and that's why we're doing a study. You're coming along my journey. I hope it helps you too. A question that I want to put before you to ponder is, you might be part of the miracle happening. However, it usually isn't the same exact way you think. If we look at miracles in the Bible, even before we get to this chapter, there's usually some participation of the other person that is needed. God tells Abraham to sacrifice his son. That's a miracle that Abraham brings him to the mountain, gets ready to actually slay his son, and the miracle comes where there's a ram in the bush. Abraham removes the knife from his son and then now puts it towards the ram. But the miracle in this story is there's a drought happening. The drought is happening in the region. It's happening in the nation, which means there's no food, there's no water coming in. Things are going to be shut up completely. And Elijah, who actually prophesies this drought, is also a part of it. Like, he's still going to be living there. God tells him to go from there, go by the brook Cherith, and he's going to drink from the brook. And God has commanded a raven to come feed him. Now, with this happening, the first couple of thoughts that could come to someone's mind is, you honestly want me to be fed by a bird? And if by a bird, why couldn't it be like a dove or an eagle, but not a raven? But ravens are very, very intelligent birds. And I'll scroll down to my teaching. It talks a little bit about how ravens actually are birds. This is something that I read this morning. It's not unusual that a helper animal, a raven, would be used, especially ravens, as they occupy a space and a place in the heart of the Father. It would seem they are a complex, intelligent bird. They tend to collect things that would hurt other creatures, such as sharp rocks, broken glass, screws, etc., and pile them up in hordes and trees where they are less likely to harm anything. I never knew that. I never knew they were actually there to be removing objects and things that could hurt people and storing them away so that people could not be hurt. That could be a different lesson, but not today. With this, our mindset as people have to get to a place where we don't only see provision from the way we always have seen it, and we have to also change our mindset to realize no matter what happens, God is going to provide. As simple as that sounds, as easy as that sounds, it's not always an easy pill to swallow. Because often we remember, we live in a system, we live in the world, and God's system is not usually the same. With that being discovered, there could be some tension as you're changing your mindset. We don't get the luxury of seeing what Elijah said when God told him to go by the brook, and then that a raven was going to sustain him. But the Bible says that he did it. He went, he did it, and then it happened. He was sustained by drinking from the brook, and ravens brought him food. My question was, where did the ravens get the food from? Because the region was in a drought, which shows us that God doesn't necessarily need to provide you from where you think it needs to be coming from. That's a lesson for me. It doesn't need to always come from hustle, from grinding. It could come from different places if you just obey what he's showing you and telling you to do. When God tells you to do something or shows you something, it's often nothing to do with the actual problem. It's usually something that you'd be like, this has nothing to do with what I'm dealing with. This has nothing to do with what I want to actually see come forth. It has nothing to do with that. And God is like, it does, because obedience in my eyes is better than sacrifice. That's Acts chapter 5 and verse 29. It's also because you don't realize that this obedience works a muscle in you. Let's remember and think about this. He tells Elijah, prophesies that this region is not going to have water and food. They're going to be in a drought. And then God provides for him consistently, repeatedly. The main thing is changing our mindset to obedience being the first thing that we do. Not grind. I'm not saying that you shouldn't work on the things that you have to do or God instructs you to do, but the first thing has to be obedience, because that's faith. That's actually faith over fear. Obeying God when he says, hey, don't go there. Not because of sin, but because I have a different way of doing things. I have a different way I want you to do this, because I want to still get the glory. I want you to be provided for, and I want you to always remember that I am your provision. The last thing I want to talk about or read for you guys is something that I got from Joshua Selman. I love his teaching. He said, change your model and your references. This is upgrading your mind. And this part I put on it. With upgrading, we also have to realize that sometimes people will revert back to the old, because upgrading is a learning curve. What do I mean by that, Drew? When you go to upgrade something, it usually makes you dismiss the old system. It usually means you have to get rid of the old system. Like when you do computers and stuff like that, when you're updating the software, it eliminates the software that was there before, because it's no longer going to serve its purpose. And often when we're upgrading, we get scared because there's something new we have to learn. We get scared because there's something different, and we knew the old system like the back of our hands. If you've ever worked at a job before, when they're upgrading software, people complain about how stupid it is, about how they should have just kept it the old way. And they don't see the behind the scenes of that old system was going to start failing more. This new system is going to be cost effective. It's going to accomplish more. People hate change. We know that. But with this upgrading, there is a learning curve. But with upgrading, there is also a better level or a new level to be on. With Elijah in this story, he had to upgrade his mind to be like, hey, this is how God's going to provide for me. God knows what's best. Let me obey. And he goes on throughout the scriptures, and we see provision being made for him in many other ways. So today, my big question for you is, what is God showing you to obey? And will you do that? That could be the key to your provision. Will you obey what God is showing you to do today? I'm out of here, guys. Be great.